Let's freaking go! It's BHL. We're doing some breakdowns of some of the incoming LSU players, including one of my favorites, Shelton freaking Sampson from LSU's own backyard in the 225 Catholic High School. Shout out Cliff and Mike and all our PHLers. We know you guys in particular, you Bears out there, are super excited about Shelton coming in. So comment down below, do you believe Shelton Sampson is the best offensive weapon coming into this cycle for LSU? Now, I'm going to give you what I like and dislike, and there's not really a lot that I dislike here with Shelton Sampson, but as many of you know, the way that 247 and On3 rates their recruits sometimes don't align with how I see them, but like I always say, for the most part, they normally get these things right. But something very bizarre happened with Shelton Sampson his senior season is that he actually tumbled quite a bit in the rankings, okay? So right off the jump here, before we continue our evaluation, you're taking a look at some of the recruiting rankings, and Shelton Sampson was a lower end 5-star, and all four of the services actually ended up putting Shelton Sampson in the lower 80s when it was all said and done, which is kind of interesting to me because there is a major wild card with this with Shelton Sampson. Now, in the background, we're not doing necessarily any slower breakdowns. We'll get to some of that in just a second. In the background, though, you do see a kickoff return. Maybe that is something that they use him for next year. But let me start off by saying this. I think Shelton Sampson is LSU's best receiver in this class, even though ultimately Jaylen Brown actually, he also slid down. He ended up barely edging out Shelton Sampson on some composite boards. So I thought that was very interesting that both of LSU's top receivers ended up sliding quite a bit. Don't know exactly why that is, especially since Jaylen Brown apparently lit it up at some of these bowl games, but it is what happened. Now, let me share a few things what I like about Shelton Sampson as a player when I evaluated him. Pure hands catcher, as you saw in the background, just plucking the football out of the air. As you see, lots of verticality in his games. Obviously, this was a double trick play move right here, but he is a very vertical weapon. Not only, just deep balls, but in the red zone, you see him catch a large number of fades. Now, that was a comeback route, but this right here will be what you see a lot on Shelton Sampson's tape is a ton of goal line fades. So I guess one thing that might have hurt Shelton Sampson is a lot of his success do come on these routes that are just simply run fast and we'll throw it underneath you. But there's also catches like that where, the coverage actually rotated to him and he was still able to make a contested catch. Now, one thing I don't see a lot of when I actually watch Shelton Sampson is a lot of amazing yak plays where he catches a football and does something absolutely ridiculous after the catch. That's not necessarily his game, a la like a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type of player, but he does remind me, and it does help that he wears that number 6 uniform. He does have a lot of Terrace Marshall to him, right? A very smooth, fluid, high ball catcher who isn't this athletic marvel with his speed, but his size at 6'4" is absolutely remarkable. And his route running, honestly, is pretty good just based on what I've seen. So, for me, I am still very high on Shelton Sampson, right? There are other wide receivers in this crop that I like better that I've evaluated. Brandon Ennis, Hakeem Williams is one of those guys. Obviously, Zachariah Branch, I think, is the clear-cut number one guy. He's going to USC. But, I think Shelton Sampson's in that crop after those guys. I'm still a little shocked that he did fall as far as he fell, especially considering that the competition that Catholic High plays is really tough, right? You don't play cupcakes all that often at Catholic High, right? We might get to some of this footage, but I might save it for when we actually do something on this young man. But, I saw Shelton Sampson in a playoff game have a really good outing against Ashton Stamps. Now, Stamps had a few good plays on Shelton himself, but man, he actually played well against some really high-level defensive backs, right? There was a game I charted last year versus Woodlawn where he was going up against Jordan Matthews, a corner going to Tennessee. So, when you play at Catholic High, you do play a lot of very good competition. So, you see in the background there a nice little underneath slip where he made a few guys miss. We'd have liked to have seen probably a little bit more of that on his senior tape. But I'm telling you, we've done other Shelton Sampson breakdowns. This guy is really, really, really good. I think he is pretty complete. I do like him as a player. Apparently, he does have a good work ethic and truly wants to be great, and I do see him as someone that will get some year one snaps. Bam! Looking at you, yes, you, right now. So, I know you've already subscribed, rang the bell. You can support PHL in many ways. We've done some extra recruiting breakdowns on the Patreon. So what you're looking at here is Shelton Sampson's Jr. statistics. And as you can see, they aren't necessarily spectacular, but they're still very good. So for his recruiting ranking to completely fall off the radar, you would expect a senior slump, and boom, you're looking at his senior stats, and the exact opposite actually happened. He actually outperformed himself his senior season. So in a second, I'm going to give you my theory as to why he slid. But I want to show you a few reps. This was a legendary game. Ricky Collins and Woodlawn going up against Shelton Sampson and Catholic High. And here is Shelton Sampson going head up against a four-star corner, Jordan Matthews, who is going to Tennessee, okay? And we're running the route versus press that we've seen Shelton do more than anything else, the goal line fade. And look at where he high points this football. That is just ridiculous extension right there. And Matthews actually makes a very good play. He actually forces him to drift out of bounds. But that was some excellent ball skills right there by Shelton to at least make that somewhat close. So we move ahead to another rep in this game. All this footage via on 3. Once again, it's Shelton Sampson going head up versus Matthews, and he's running a comeback route, and Matthews just swallows him whole and just dominates this rep, okay? You obviously, in this situation, it's tough to generate, separation on this off coverage, and Matthews just feels out that comeback route, and this ball has to be thrown far and away, and look at that coverage. I mean, that is just superb stuff. And you'll see they found ways to get him the football. He only finished with 45 yards in this game, but it was kind of crazy. So Catholic High got beat by Woodlawn last year, and this year they jumped out to a big lead. Ricky Collins led him back, and Shelton Sampson actually opened up the game-winning touchdown. He was actually open. The quarterback decided to go somewhere else with it, and I believe they scored on the final play on a little bit of a sprint out to the left. But still, these reps versus Jordan Matthews were a lot of fun to watch, including this final one. Right here, 12 actually breaks off and makes a play on this. But right here, Shelton Sampson versus a four-star corner who has inside leverage, has to beat him to the inside, and there was a lot of pressure. The quarterback just kind of threw it up here, and 12 left his man. As you can see, Shelton getting held right here by Matthews, and 12 made a really good play on that ball. So, what the heck happened? Why did Shelton Sampson fall off? Because we saw him go up against elite competition. We saw his stats actually get better. What in the world happened to his recruiting ranking? Well, I have a few theories, okay? And understand that everything I'm about to share with you is not how I feel, but just based on what I've heard and people who do evaluations for a living. I'll share with you a few things about Shelton. The first, this is an evaluator who I trust a lot, and this is what he had to say about Shelton Sampson. He's not in love with him, but he likes him a lot, and this isn't the only time I've heard this. He's a little skeptical about Shelton Sampson's speed. So it is well regarded that he once ran a sub 4.4. Some people actually don't believe he is actually that fast. So, like I said earlier, when I watch him, I don't necessarily see him as just some unbelievable blazer, but his speed actually is, for me, it looks pretty good, right? So, it's not unreal. It's obviously not on the same level of, let's say, like a Tyreek or a Kayshawn, if you will, but it's still very, very good. This is actually one of my favorite reps, shaking the guy off the line of scrimmage. This is LCA in the background and high points of football there. Also this year, of course, Shelton didn't have Emory Jones paving the way for two 1,000-yard rushers at Catholic High, so he had to obviously get better. He had to carry more of the load, and you saw the increase in numbers. So, for me, I shared that one little screenshot evaluation from Shelton Sampson. I'll also share something else. This might just be anecdotal, but there are so many good receivers every year, not only, in high school recruiting, but every year entering the NFL draft. There's always going to be a plethora of wide receivers, more so than any other position. Some of that is the rule changes. Some of that is just the rise of 7-on-7. But every year it just seems like there is an endless amount of wide receivers that are out there. And a guy like, who I mentioned him earlier, I'm really high on him. He went to Florida State, Hakeem Williams. There were some guys like him that just kept rising up boards. I always play this out. That's Emory Jones getting all the way out here to kick out this screen. You wonder why Emory Jones is one of my highest rated prospects ever coming into LSU. It's because of plays like that. But yeah, there was a lot of receivers that just shot up the boards this time around. Aiden Mizell is another guy that I believe he's going to Florida that I liked a lot. But Shelton Sampson, to me, is still the best receiver that LSU brought in. And maybe this next thing has a little bit to do with it. And once again, this is just a little bit anecdotal here. But, they had this Under Armour All-American game. And, whenever you see these best of lists, like who the best players were at these camps, rarely would you see the national guys mention Shelton Sampson. They wouldn't mention Zachariah Branch or Brandon Ennis. Maybe Shelton just wasn't as good in these camp settings or Under Armour All-American game settings. I might be totally wrong on that. I'm sure he was fine, but that might be part of why he slid as much as he slid. But I don't know. But ultimately, this comes down to my evaluation, because it is my video. Your evaluation could be totally different. You could think Kyle Parker is the best receiver in this class, or Jaylen Brown, or Kai Prean. Still, I think Shelton is the wide receiver one of this group. I think so. I like those other three guys. I still think Shelton is going to be that dude. Here he is against Woodlawn. We mentioned a minute ago versus Jordan Matthews. Beat him on that deep cross right there, and then gets vertical on him. So yeah, I love him. I'm not going to change my opinion of him. I felt the same way when he was a 5-star that I do now when he is, a more middle-ish tier 4-star. Still an elite 4-star, a top 100 recruit, according to the composites, but not as elite of a prospect as he once was. So you guys comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of his route running and whatnot. Give me your honest opinions. We're all biased LSU fans, especially when it's a kid from Baton Rouge, especially when it's a kid from Catholic High. I still love him. I still think he's going to be a year one contributor, and I still think he is going to be a future NFL draft pick for LSU. So get in the comment section. I know there's going to be much debate. And let me know if you guys want to see more of these prospect breakdowns, okay? It is power hour. I hit the mic. That was not smooth at all. LSU Bam! And tonight, we're doing brisket sandwiches. Let's go. Ha, ha, ha.